So it's been a hot minute since I've done any Arcana analyses on my channel, though it's basically where it all began for me. It's been more than 2 years since I've completed my P3 and the Fool's Journey series, and it's about time I returned to the channel roots, just with Persona 5 this time. So we'll be talking about quite a few terms first coined by Carl Jung, and I realize that some of these might be unfamiliar or even confusing, so I'll briefly touch on the Jungian take on the archetype before diving into this in-depth study of the P5 main characters and confidants via the lens of the major arcana. Now with all that said, let's dive right in. The overarching themes of the Persona series are based off of Carl Jung's ideas, including those such as the collective unconscious, archetypes, and the use of the tarot to symbolize a person's path to wholeness. Jung proposed that we are all born with the collective unconscious, an entity that contains the shared memories and ideas across all of humanity. Just as there are similar myths and legends across all cultures, there exist the archetypes that manifest as the persona we use in the game. Archetypes are certain idealized images of a person or role that transcends cultures and time periods. So, in relation to the tarot, each of the major arcana promotes this concept of an individual who begins as the Fool card, gaining wisdom, experience, and essentially what is a soul through the process of encountering each one of the tarot archetypes. In Persona 5's case, this is symbolized via the relationships Joker establishes and nurtures with his confidants. Now, for time's sake, I will only briefly cover the Fool tarot. The Fool's naivete and inexperience is symbolized by the white rose held in their hand. I mean, none of us are born knowing everything, right? As for the cliff that they're about to step off of, this indicates that the Fool will soon be called to take a leap of faith, and represents the changes that are about to happen, even when they're not looking for them. Now, if the entirety of the first palace heist doesn't qualify as this leap, then I don't know what would. Adding on to all this, tarot cards have a possibility of both an upright and reverse reading to them. So in regards to the upright Fool Arcana, it symbolizes that anything can happen and that everything is possible, which is the exact situation that all Persona protagonists find themselves in from the very beginning of each game. Lastly, before we move on to the first Arcana, there's one last Jungian concept I'd like to define, and that's the anima and animus. In its most basic form, anima refers to the traits we traditionally associate with masculinity, while the animus refers to those which we associate with femininity. Any one person can become a more fulfilled version of themselves if they find a balance between the anima and animus. With this concept in mind, the first two arcana are closely tied to each other, and both are necessary to understand to become a well-rounded person. In this case, the Magician represents the masculine energy, while the Priestess represents the feminine. But with that little Jungian preface covered, we can now move on to the actual arcana analyses. In the most generalized overview, the Magician teaches the Fool the value of one's inner potential and how to manifest the destiny he or she so chooses by taking action. This is showcased in how Morgana is Joker's teacher regarding the metaverse, especially in the first couple dungeons. Mona tangibly nurtures Joker's Phantom Thief skills and really brings out his potential as the wildcard and ace of the group. And in the real world, he teaches Joker practical crafting skills and even draws attention to objects or activities that he can acquire skills from. You see, the magician is creative and is seen as the originator of ideas, all of which is easily seen early on via Mona's craftiness and cunning in Kamoshida's palace. But on that note, this brings us to how the magician is the one other arcana that's closely associated with the trickster archetype. So while the trickster is usually used in reference to the fool, the tarot archetype of the magician also encompasses this image. Something especially fitting for P5, considering how the whole gentleman thief stealing the treasure theme, in general, is the closest the Hashino Persona games have come to exploring the trickster aspect of these two arcana. But focusing back onto the magician, the same communication skills, creativity, and charisma that aids him can also become incredibly manipulative and deceitful. Or in other words, it can be difficult at times to tell whose side the magician is really on. Just looking at Joker and Mona's initial confidant rank up, we see it's formed solely via them striking a deal. Mona will teach them what he knows about the metaverse in exchange for help in recovering his memories and human form in mementos. He keeps bringing up this deal throughout the entire first half of the Confidant, which obviously gives off this air that he could break it off whenever. And that leads us to the absolute reverse reading of the Magician Arcana, or the downside of the tarot archetype, which is the paradox of their arrogance and deep-seated insecurities. Morgana's ever-continuing slump during the summer months revealed all of his innermost flaws and the root of his insecurities. His strategist aspect was taken over by Makoto, then Futaba took over his navigator role, not to mention the fact she understood more about mementos than he ever did after just one trip there. All of this resulted in Mona feeling like he was useless, since he wasn't contributing nearly as much anymore. Plus, his emphasis on the deal he made with Joker only compounded his feelings of worthlessness, since he probably felt like he wasn't upholding his end of the deal. And so, when the magician's deep insecurity is coupled with his natural amounts of energy, it often results in brash and reckless action, as we can see when Morgana calls off the deal, lashes out at Ryuji, then heads to Okumura's palace completely on his own. What ensues is the headache that's basically the entire first half of the 5th arc. So we can clearly see that the magician's response to his insecurities can sabotage the entire team, as well as himself. But once Morgana confronts his inner demons and honestly reveals them to the entire team, he starts encompassing the true strength of the magician, the one that bolsters the group with his genuine enthusiasm. Mona's speeches, like the one before the Okumura boss fight, as well as the standout one about human perseverance during the Yaudabouth stuff, shows the incredible source of morale and spirit the magician can be. So you see, when in peak form, the magician symbolizes the ability to translate one's inner potential into action, and is described as the ultimate miracle worker in the tarot deck. In Morgana's case, he was literally formed as humanity's last hope incarnate, and his existence in the very end is a legit miracle in and of itself, because despite all odds, he was able to manifest his form in the real world again thanks to the PT's collective wish. So anyway, in conclusion, the upright magician teaches the fool how to use all the creative energy within and around himself to realize his ideas and achieve success. The next archetype is the High Priestess, commonly shortened to just the Priestess, and is the counterpart to the Magician Arcana. Just as the magician is representative of masculine energy, or the part that takes action, The priestess is the feminine side of intuitive energy and calls for introspection. This arcana is skilled at moving past appearances, getting in touch with her inner feelings, and relying on her own intuition. When Makoto is in peak form, her intuitive deductions and skillful strategy carries the team through palace after palace during the middle part of the game. Her gut feelings also end up saving her new friend Eiko from a life of getting trafficked. Without Makoto's belief in her own intuition and her relentless pursuit in notifying Eiko of the dangers, no one would have batted an eye at the latter's new boyfriend. He really was not so nice deep down, and was an actual pimp. But Makoto struggles with the reverse priestess, of course. The downside of this arcana is characterized by repressed feelings and excessive trust in the opinions of others. Makoto's early arc perfectly encompasses this negative aspect of this archetype. She stays quiet and obedient to the principal and her own sister, only doing and believing what is expected of her, even when she disagrees deep down. This is especially notable when Makoto tries to bring up the Phantom Thief's philosophy with Sae, but is shot down completely instead. Makoto wants justice for all in the student body who were preyed upon by drug traffickers, but must prioritize finding the PT for the principal first. So you see, by placing too much emphasis on what everyone else is thinking, Makoto is led to doing something very uncharacteristic of her normally level-headed self. Everyone is put in a tough position after she rashly goes after Kaneshiro, but fortunately everything works out in the end since she finally gets the chance to take matters into her own hands. She becomes the team's new strategist, putting her innate reasoning skills to use in his palace and ultimately putting an end to Kaneshiro's scheme. Makoto also no longer represses her feelings and chooses to have faith in the PT's justice despite anything her sister says. But Palace 6 draws attention to the upright priestess again when Makoto must continue to believe what she knows deep down. That her sister will stand for true justice, even if she's disillusioned at the moment. In the end, Makoto was right to have faith in Sae though, since the latter is the only palace ruler to have ever had a change of heart without having their treasure stolen. So all in all, the priestess serves as a mediator between the hidden feelings tucked deep inside of us and what we see on the surface. Going back to Makoto's confidant, she becomes very introspective in rank 4 about how her dad's job as a police officer really inspired her. In the end, that's what becomes her drive, landing her on the same career path as him, no matter how tough it may be. She only did well in school at first because that's what society expects out of students. But now she knows the inner reason why she now wants to study so hard, of her very own volition, of course. So, in conclusion, the priestess teaches the fool to look past first appearances and instead to value his own intuition. So that about wraps this up. I'd love to hear what you guys think about these two arcana, and also please give the video a like if you liked it to help me out with the algorithm. Join our welcoming and active community on Discord and follow me on Twitter and on Twitch. And lastly, I want to give a huge thanks to all my patrons for their support, especially Jared Breland, Andreas Hansen, Captain Hobo, NT Luck, Big Clingy, Sam Bezjak, Thomas Perez Jr., Francesco Santoyo Rego, Silverwind 847, Sathya Selvaraja, M. Meownalin, Gigi Sora, Platinum Rose, and Malcolm Lowry. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time guys, take care. See ya!